Hey guys, Ted McGrath. I'm here with Marshall Faulk, legendary football player, financial wizard too, I just find out, and also really involved with Drug Free World and helping people on the planet. So we decided to come together. Last week we had this event where we did an interview with each other, and we're both very passionate about Drug Free World and making a difference in the world so people can have a greater purpose and not get hooked on drugs and not make a poor choice, but make a better choice for their purpose in their life. So we're here to support people on their purpose. We're here to support people on their mission and to keep people informed and educated on the truth about drugs so they can make better decisions. So Marshall, I'm going to kick it off and lead with a question because I'm always fascinated when I meet somebody who had a plan when they were younger. Like you knew at a young age what you wanted to do. And I was the opposite of that, but here we are together, right?
Yeah.
So how did tell me when it came to fruition that you knew you had this great purpose on life, and then you stayed away from drugs and stayed away from the bad stuff?
Yeah, it was at a young age. I knew that I was gifted. Grew up the youngest of six boys.
Yeah.
Five older brothers. Ran from them a lot.
Me too.
Took beatings.
Yeah.
Got caught at times, but the dreams and hopes of playing a professional sport. I didn't know what sport it was going to be. I played football, baseball, basketball. I boxed, ran track, so I knew athletically I was inclined. Just didn't know which sport it was going to be.
Yeah.
And when you grow up poverty stricken, in the projects, in the ghetto, and you're around a lot of violence, drugs, you kind of know that it's going to take a lot for you to change what you see every day. And things got to be different.
Yeah.
And you have to be different. And I was okay with being different.
Yeah.
I was different. Everybody will tell you, oh, he was always different. There was always a ball in his hand. He was always the last one on the park. He was always the last one to do this. And that was just me. My brothers would tell you I was different from them. My mom, if you would ask her, she'd tell you I was different from the rest of her kids. And I was just always different. And I knew I wanted something different than what I saw in my community.
Yeah.
And so with that, when you want something different, you got to do something different. You have to search for different things, and that's what I did.
Did you know? Did you feel like you just knew your whole life that you knew the path you wanted to take? Did you have any realization at a young age where you were like, okay, this reaffirms it, or do you feel like you just knew?
I was okay. I was okay with having big dreams and having people laugh at me for wanting things that I saw on TV.
Yeah. Yeah.
So my brothers would laugh at me when I would say that things on TV I was going to have or I was going to do.
Right. Yeah.
And they would laugh, shut up. I was like, stop talking. That's the kind of stuff that they would say.
After they were holding you down and beating
right,
your ass,
right? Like, shut up. Stop talking too much.
That's what happened to me. They used to beat the shit out of me, man.
So,
I think that made me stronger, though. You too?
Oh, yeah, without a doubt.
Beat you down?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. But that, those dreams, and I always talk to kids all the time. Now I'm like, it's okay to dream.
Yeah. That's
your map. That's like your GPS.
Yeah, totally.
That's your GPS to get you there.
Yeah.
If you don't have those dreams, how do you get there? And it's okay. It's fine. The bigger the dream, it's just distance travel it's how you get there. So, man, I just think back to those dreams. I remember getting drafted. I remember signing my contract. I remember playing in my first NFL game. All of those things were like landmarks. They were landmarks. And
do you remember when you first said it that you wanted to play in the NFL?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I was. Let me see. I was 6.
Unbelievable.
I was 6 years old. I was 6 years old. My brother's team.
Yeah.
My brother was the coach.
Yeah.
I was playing for the Samson Colts. and I was wearing number 33.
Yeah.
And there was the guy who was the running back in front of me. My brother was the coach, and he had somebody playing in front of me, and I was pissed. I felt like I was better than the kid.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted to be an NFL player.
Yeah.
I had never met one, didn't know anything about one, but I was like, I want to play NFL football. I knew I. But the funny part was, so that year when basketball started, you know, they put the little metal thing over, and then they put the backboard in the bitty backboard, you know, the extension for the 6-year-olds, because you played on the bitty goal, the extension, and then you got to play bitty basketball. And I was like, you know, I think I'm gonna play NBA too. I was gonna play something.
No way, I love it.
Man. I knew I felt like I was gonna do it all. So I didn't really have a clear picture of what it was going to be, but I knew I was going to be something. And I mean, I had dreams of being something. Every race, I thought I was like, man, I'm being in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched Carl Lewis run in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I remember that. And every race that we ran in my neighborhood, I won.
Yeah.
So it was just like, I knew I was going to be something. I didn't know what.
Yeah.
But athletically, I was inclined. So the dream was there. I saw it. I was connected. So the right to make, like, all the decisions that I had to make and all the things that come at you when you have to make these decisions, they were easy decisions for me.
Interesting.
They were so easy for me.
Yeah.
I was so focused.
Yeah.
As a kid, the choices that you make and the decisions that you make, they were easy decisions for me. Now, don't get me wrong. I did knucklehead stuff. I was a normal boy growing up in the ghetto. I did dumb stuff. I fought. I made stupid decisions. But for the most part, I stayed away from the things that are hard to come back from.
Yeah.
You know, those things that, like going to jail.
Yeah.
Doing drugs.
Yep.
You just, those things, you just don't come back from.
Right, yeah.
You just, they're hard to come back from. And I stayed away from those things.
Was there somebody that was like, were you the influencer for yourself, obviously, but was there somebody else who was an influencer for you who was like, who believed in your dreams and supported that?
Well, I can't say a specific person, because when you grow up in the ghetto, and you have the kind of dreams that I have, they think you're stupid. Like they tell you, they literally laugh at your dreams.
Wow. Yeah.
Your dreams are actually, and I tell people this, even now in what I do now, your dreams have to be so big that people laugh at you. So when you create them, they don't think it's possible.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it's like, what? You did what? And then when it's built, they're amazed by it.
Totally. You know, I remember when I was a kid, I think, you know, as a kid we have an idea of what we want to do. You knew, and you follow the path. In my town, you know, there wasn't like LA where there's acting and there's people who are doing theater and stuff like that as much. And I was into athletics because that's just what you did, you know, at a younger age. And I loved it. I loved the competition. But I was always like, I loved Eddie Murphy. So I used to do his impersonations all the time, man. So, and I knew at a young age like that, I loved doing that. But it's funny because I didn't realize till later, you know, 7 years ago when I saw somebody do a play, that I could get up and do something like that because I didn't see people around me who were doing that. You see somebody on TV, and to me, I guess maybe I thought it was unreachable. I didn't know anybody in my environment who was doing stuff like that. So I was just like, okay, whatever, you know, like I have fun doing this stuff, you know? But it's interesting, like, had I stayed the course, you know, at a younger age and gone with like something that lit me up, it'd be interesting to see, like, you know, what path I would have taken besides that, you know? But I'm grateful now that I found that and I chose years ago, and I'm like, okay, I've got this performer inside of me, I got this actor, I've been suppressing it for like 30 years. But I took the path of, you know, fitting in with the social kids, doing the drugs, and all that. And in doing the drugs, it just sends you down such a completely different path, you know? But you stayed away from that. You made a choice at a young age and you were like, this is what I want to do. So question, you know, I don't think it's ever too late for people, right?
Oh, never.
So, you know, what would you recommend to somebody right now who's wanting to make a new choice in their life, who's not happy with their purpose, who maybe doesn't have the right plan, and they're maybe veering off down the wrong path, whether it's drugs or something else? You know, what advice would you give them?
I think a change, a new beginning, and a new opportunity is there for anyone.
Yeah.
It's literally up to you. The right mindset is necessary, and I believe you have to clear yourself of whatever thoughts you had of yourself, of whatever you used to be.
Yeah. Yeah.
It starts there.
Yeah.
You don't care. You can't care what other people thought of you.
Yeah.
It's what you thought of you.
Right.
Because you get in the way.
Yeah.
You know, I think about, and I tell people this story all the time. When I went from this little ghetto kid who grew up in New Orleans, I remember I took the scholarship and I went to San Diego State. I got on that campus and I was like, there's nobody here like me. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, there's nobody here that knows anything about the life that I live in New Orleans or anything that I've been through or whatever. I got a clean slate. I can live a life. I was thinking to myself like this, man, I could be like Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
I love it.
I could be Carlton.
I used to watch that all the
like
time,
I was just like, I could be whoever I want right now.
Yeah.
And my life could change. This is a clean slate for me.
Yeah.
Like nobody had to know anything about anything that I have done, ever done.
Yeah.
And that's it. That was my mindset.
Yeah.
So I literally changed everything. I was like, I decided who I wanted to be, how I wanted to be, what I wanted to be, and that's how I attacked it. That's literally I created who I am today. Now the values, you know, my parents, those were instilled in me.
Yeah. And
it's still instilled in me. But my public persona of my brand and what it is, that gave me a clean slate. That gave me an opportunity to be who I am. And I think that we get to alleviate ourselves of the thoughts of what we had about ourselves in the past, and we have to let that go.
Yeah.
It's not what other people think of us, it's what we think of us.
100%.
And a lot of the times we put those pressures on ourselves. We can't let go of the things and the perceptions and the stories and even the good times. Like, we don't want to let that person go.
Right.
You know, we want to hold on to the fun times and the victories and the down times. You know, that's us.
Yeah. And what was it like for you? Because you're talking about recreation or reinventing yourself, like you've reinvented yourself many times.
Many times.
Right? So when you left the NFL and you had to reinvent yourself, what I think is really cool about what you're doing is you reinvented yourself to do work in the financial sector.
Yeah.
You're also a contributor, and a lot of people, I don't think a lot of people get that. Like, we're both contributors for causes to help the planet. Where does that come from? Does it come from, for you, like, hey, I've had this great success in the world, I want to give back to people, I've seen too many people go through this, like, where does that drive to give back come from with you?
Well, just the understanding of two things.
Yeah.
I grew up in an environment with violence, drugs, you know, it just an infestation of it.
Yeah.
It took a lot of really good people out of my life. Drugs really, you know, it wasted a lot of good lives, people, and you could just keep going on with your life, or you can decide, I want to make a difference. It's literally that's like, I want to make a difference, and you go on and you like, okay, You want to make a difference. You want to make a difference, but how? It's like you want to make a difference. You want how? And literally, there's things out there that you can do to make a difference, but you really need a platform to make a difference. You need a platform to stand on to make a difference. And I had not found one until I found Drug Free World.
Right.
Now, that entity exists, and what happened and why I do Drug Free World is based on what I saw in my life and how it affected me. Now, the other part is how I got the opportunities that I got. A lot of things was done for me. So the philanthropy side of me and what I give back with my foundation and what I've created to help kids, to provide them the resources so they can just have a chance, is because I realized what was done for me by coaches, teachers, administrators. A lot was done for me to succeed. Yeah. And that, I mean, I didn't forget that. So I do a lot. You know, I do a lot because a lot was done for me. Yeah. And those two things, they exist. So with that, whether it's Drug Free World, whether it's fighting the cause for diabetes, whether it's going to hospitals and visit kids that's suffering from any type of illness, whether it's fighting for people with cancer. I mean, I advocate for things in life, for life in general. Yeah. And I just want to help. That's it. I just want to help, man. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah, it's good. So what's your perspective on, like, when I grew up doing drugs, and I chose to, like, recreationally use, and I eventually OD'd from it, with cocaine and ecstasy and street drugs like that. It's interesting, as I've gotten, to a place to want to contribute to help with Drug Free World, the thing that actually burns me more than the street drug stuff is, like, the opioids and the psych drugs and that aspect of it. I'm actually more passionate to help on that level, because I think to a certain degree, are people not told the truth about what's in regular drugs that are used on the street? Yeah, for sure. I think deep down for me personally, I knew, like, even when I was doing it, it was wrong. I knew that it had bad negative effects. I didn't know how bad, right? But so, we see what's going on with the opioid crisis. We see what's going on with, even psych drugs when, people aren't being given the full truth on stuff. What's your perspective on those different avenues?
I'll be honest with you, man. In the Black community, we're thankful that opioids and psych drugs are actually being looked at the way that it's being looked at, because it's actually bringing you guys into our community, because when crack cocaine and a lot of the drugs were an epidemic in the Black community, it was just say no to drugs. A lot wasn't being done. Legislation wasn't being passed on let's crack down on it. Right. It was like, let's just put them in jail. They didn't want to educate us. Yeah. They didn't care. Yeah. A lot of stuff wasn't being done. But now that the opioids and these prescription drugs are hitting the suburbs, and now the senators, it's in their homes. Yep. Now it's an issue. Right. Now we want to pass laws. Yeah. Now we care what the drug companies are doing. Now we want to sit the drug companies down and we want to talk to them. Now we have lawsuits against the drug companies. Yeah. Now it matters. Right. Yeah. It's not enough to just say no. Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Right. And speak to that, because, like, the cool thing that I love about Drug Free World, I remember I shared this with you last week, but I remember being at one of my seminars and somebody saying that they got a piece of information from a booklet years ago, right? And they said that piece of information informed them to go, I'm never going to do drugs. Yeah. And to me, that was mind-blowing. I'm like, a piece of information that educates somebody. But I think in a world where so many people are told, no, don't do that thing. I mean, if you're told no, you're like, I'm going to go out and do that thing a lot of times, right? So the Just Say No campaign, I think, didn't work from that perspective.
Hell no.
But from drug-free world perspective and giving people the truth to where they can make up their own minds, that's a different game.
Man, these booklets are so important. Like this information.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything like this when I grew up.
Yeah, I don't remember
this
either.
is just that was it. It was dare and just say no.
Right, yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all they said. We didn't have any. There was no literature. There was no real education. It was. Thank God. What scared me was what I saw.
Right.
Like I saw the guy selling drugs get killed. That scared me. And I saw the effects of the person using drugs and what they look like. That scared me.
Yeah. And how about for athletes of what you've seen there? Like, does that motivate you also to do what you're doing now? Did you just see a lot of crazy stuff happen?
Well, it's the understanding of how they get down that rabbit hole.
Right. Yeah.
It's you just no athlete decides, oh, you know what? Today I'm gonna use drugs.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you don't have a support system or someone to turn to. Now, think about it, all right? If you're a young black kid in the ghetto and you have a problem, you're taught to solve it. Nobody want to hear your damn problem.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, usually we solve our problem by fighting.
Right.
That's I don't know if I ever sat down with my father and had a conversation, a man to man on what to do with my emotions,
Right.
or what to do with my feelings, or how do I figure something out when things go. The conversation that I have with my kids.
Right.
You don't figure those conversations aren't had.
Yeah.
So when you're an athlete and something goes wrong, you don't know how to figure it out. What do you want to mask it? And how do you mask it? You think that's all somebody has to do is tell you, hey man, try this. This will make you feel better.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And guess what? For that period of time, it's gone.
Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, like how a simple conversation could totally influence somebody.
Yes.
And I agree with you. As a kid, everybody's going on their everyday living. I don't remember sitting down with my parents and having those discussions either. And I think that's so important today. If you have kids, I don't have kids at this point, but I'm sure you're having these discussions with your kids. You're
You have to.
in communication with them. And how do you feel like that changes things for kids when you're talking to them like, they're real people with real opinions?
Well, here's the thing. I know that if they go down that rabbit hole, it's because they want to.
Mm-hmm.
The communication lines are open.
Yeah.
And they know where I stand on drugs.
Yeah.
But they know the lines of communication are open, and
That's
they can
good.
come talk to me.
Yeah, that's good.
And that's it. I can't make them,
Mm-hmm.
but they know I'm educated. They know I have answers.
Yeah.
They know I can get them answers, and they know I can help them.
Mm-hmm.
I can't make them.
Yeah. And what do you think? What do you think we need to like a call to more people to help with this? Like, what is this step for people to get involved? Do you think, just like personally for people? Yeah, sure, they can get the booklets and they can get informed, but in terms of this serving people to have like a purpose, because to me, this ignites a different purpose in me than regular life. So, what do you feel like this has brought to you in terms of a sense of purpose that maybe can help somebody else find a sense of purpose?
Well, beyond the education, beyond the sense of purpose, just duty, man. When you're doing this work and you understand, and you've seen the things that I've seen,
Yeah.
drugs do. This is a crusade, and the only way to combat what's being put out there
Yeah.
is able bodies with the mentality that they're never going to quit, they're never going to stop, that they're going to outwork the drug companies, that they're going to outwork the drug dealers.
Yeah.
And that's literally because they're working tirelessly night and day to make billions.
Yeah.
And we got to be working tirelessly night and day to save billions.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
I mean, that's literally what we're up against.
Yeah. What was the transition like for you? Because when I look at, getting off drugs for people, they have to make a transition. And some of them are going from bottomless nothing, like, this is the only thing that makes me feel good. I know for me, when I made the transition, I tried to stay off it for a while, and I stayed off it for 9, 10, 11 months. But socially, I had no life. So I was like hermited, like being a hermit. So I was like, I felt like I had the discipline to stay off it, but then of course, I would fall back off and get into it again, after 10 months or 2 months or whatever. So I feel like as part of a plan or a purpose, people need to know how to transition into new things.
Yeah.
And you transitioned well into new things.
Yeah.
I transitioned into totally new industries, into new things, into new causes, into a new way of life without drugs. What do you think is the best advice to give somebody who needs to transition into something new?
I think, and I don't know for everybody, but for me, whenever I transition, I'm really clear on my whys. Like my whys and my purpose for doing things are very clear to me.
Yeah.
And I stick to them. And as I continue to accomplish my whys, I continue to grow my why. And that's it, because when you set out to do new things, or you set out with a new endeavor, we tend to have our goals be low-hanging fruit because we want to accomplish them.
Yeah.
And so I have near goals, and I have very lofty goals. And so I look at both. I have things that are attainable, that I can do in the near future, that I should be like, okay, I'm on path. And then I have things that I look at and I'm like, okay, I'm still chasing those.
Yeah.
And that keeps me in my why.
Yeah.
And as long as I understand and I stay linked in as to why I'm doing it, whether I hit my goals or not, it doesn't really get me up or get me down.
Right.
Because I'm locked into why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I'm locked in.
Yeah.
So like drug-free world, I have goals on what I want to do.
Yeah.
And let's say I don't hit my goal. I'm pissed.
Right. Yeah.
But the reality is I'm reaching people.
Yeah.
Because the goal is to actually reach people.
Yeah. You're very interesting. Like as I'm sitting here, I just had a realization. I'm like, man, it's so interesting because as you go through life, like I think the why thing that you're talking about is, I think it's developed. I think people naturally have it, but I think when they listen to other people for so long, they forget their sense of why. They forget their sense of purpose.
Yeah. It's easy.
So they go along and they're like, well, I had this idea. I know this happened to me. I had this idea. It sounded really good, and somebody else suggested something different. So I went down that path. And it's interesting. I just had this realization talking to you. I'm like, because you knew at such a young age what you wanted, you were like, you're very ingrained in the why of like, oh, here's what's true for me. It's interesting we're talking about truth about drugs, right? Truth. So you knew what was true. And I've developed that over time in my life. I was very good at taking direction, like mentors or whatever, go do this. And I'm like, oh, this is the thing to do. I'll just go do it, right? But I learned in the last probably 8, 9 years of like, what is totally true for me? What's my why? And I think, as I'm sitting here talking to you, this is interesting because I then have, friends around me, mentors around me who play at high levels in the entertainment industry who've now become believers because of my belief in my vision and my dream of what I want to accomplish. And that's only a skill set or maybe a knowing that I've had my whole life, but it's only something that I've honored in the last 7, 8 years. And you knew at a young age, like many people do, but you weren't suggestible to another path. And I think it's such an interesting thing for people. Drugs, people are suggestible, right? It's like, hey, I'm about to go to practice. No, go do this drug. And somebody how many people have gotten derailed like that? Hey, I got this great purpose. Oh, try this drug. They get derailed, Or maybe they just have a setback and a loss. and they have a goal that they don't accomplish, but they don't know their why. So they're like, fuck, I failed at the goal, I might as well go do something else. It's so interesting though, I mean, I think very few people on the planet that I've met have that realization at a young age that you had, and I watch how it's established who you are in every aspect of what you're getting into. It's really interesting, man. I think it's a great thing for people to take away to go, if I just get clear on why I'm doing something, I could literally like do anything in this moment.
That's it.
Leaders, it's interesting, man.
Leaders lead.
Yeah.
And I told you this when I saw your show afterwards. I said the one thing that when you're clear about your why, or when you're a leader, the one word that'll resonate and people will feel it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll say it to you, and it permeates, outside of you. It's authenticity. Like,
right.
I was like, that was authentic.
Yeah.
It's like you wear it.
Yeah.
They smell it.
Yeah.
It's like.
Yeah.
It's not something that you can't fake authenticity.
Right. Which is also interesting because that's where the why comes from.
Yes.
Because if you're totally authentic to who you are and what you believe, that's where the why is.
Done.
And it's so, dude, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, because I think a lot of times people want to understand. They see, we haven't talked a lot about your NFL career, but they see how much success you've had in that field, right?
You don't even have to talk about that.
Right.
That's Googleable.
Right, so they can Google it, but it's so interesting because a lot of times people want to understand, how did that person do it? Like, how did they have the drive? And I think we distilled it down to, you knew your why, you clearly had ability and talent, but you stayed focused on the path of exactly what you wanted. And I think that's the thing for anybody. It doesn't matter what career they're in, it doesn't matter how low they are in their life. I mean, when I walked in to get all the drugs out of my body, I was very clear. I was like, I gotta get this thing handled, And so it could even be something that somebody's going through that's a horrible moment, to simply just go, at this moment, I don't know what my future is, but I know it's not dying from this.
Yeah, you had your why.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. Let me just get this cleared up. It's very interesting, man. It's talked about a lot though, the why, like know your why. But when you hear somebody's real life experience of it, I think it's authentic. I have a different insight listening to it.
You know what? They're at home. They're listening to this.
Yeah.
They're looking at it, and somebody's literally saying, "That's too simple for it to be that simple."
Right.
Because they don't want to believe that it's that simple, but it is.
Simple
It
truth.
literally is. It's that simple.
It is.
It's like, if you get real with your why, then you can do anything you want in life.
100%.
Because then you have to be authentic about where you are at. And then you start talking to yourself like, you know what? You ain't shit.
Yeah.
You're not doing what you're supposed to do. You know what? You knew you were supposed to get up early. You're real. You didn't leave on time. That's why you're late. You start being real with yourself about everything you do in life.
Yeah.
And then there you go. You start doing the things you're supposed to do. And then before you know it, you start accomplishing the things you want to accomplish.
Yeah.
And then you start accomplishing goals. The ones near and the ones far.
Yeah. Now, after the NFL, did you have a plan right away? So you knew.
No, so my plan for after the NFL was put in place while in the NFL. So I knew I wanted to do broadcasting.
Okay, got it.
I knew I wanted to be a broadcaster when I was in college. So I took, I was a freshman in college, and let's say, I got recruited. I came. I did an interview.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing myself on television, and I was like, "What did I say?" And I had this Southern accent from New Orleans, and I was like, "Oh my God, I gotta fix that."
No way, man.
Yeah. So I went to our public relations director. His name was John Rosenthal. I said, "John, look at this." He's like, "What?" I said, "You can barely understand what I'm saying."
No way.
I said, I'm speaking in like New Orleans. I'm like, if you have ever heard someone from New
I haven't
like
been
we
there.
speak,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
speak
yeah.
out. We have our own like dialect.
Yeah.
I said I want to fix that. He's like, but I mean that's you. I said, but I want to fix that. I
Right.
want to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, you need to take some oral communications classes. So I minored in oral communications.
And you knew you wanted to get into broadcasting?
Yeah, I knew I wanted to. I watched Tom Jackson. He was working at ESPN at the time. I was like, I want that job. I want to do that.
So you knew after the NFL that's what you were going to do?
Yeah.
Fascinating, man.
So when I got
Brand
drafted,
you as the man who knows.
when I got drafted,
Yeah.
I got drafted by the Indianapolis Colts. I interned at NBC. They still are the home of the Colts. I interned and did the behind the camera stuff, and then they actually had me come in front of the camera and work on their post game show, interviewing after the games. And then when I got traded to St. Louis, I had my own show.
Yeah.
And then when I retired, I started doing TV.
So you were interning while you were in the NFL,
Yeah.
so you knew what you were going to do.
Yeah, I knew what I wanted to do.
Yeah. Transition plan.
Yeah,
Yeah, you had a vision.
yeah, you gotta have it.
Yeah. You had a vision. It's fascinating of exactly what you wanted to do with your life and how everything
Those
would
goals,
integrate
man,
into
you
your
gotta
life.
set them.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wait for things to happen, to then start making things happen,
Yeah.
it's too late.
Yeah. Well, let's flip the tables. I want you to ask me a question, perhaps as it pertains to drugs. You know my history, so I can kind of share with people my perspective on it.
Well, I'm well versed in drugs. I
Yeah.
grew up around a lot of drugs. It's not drugs that I marvel over with you. It's more or less your acting. That's what I want to know about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just take me through the process and take me from when you started
Yeah.
and like where you're at now. I watched your show and one man band
Yeah.
without many props.
Yeah.
You
Bunch
know,
of characters.
I mean,
Yeah.
and just take me through the process, man. How far have you come? Tell me the
Yeah.
distance traveled.
Okay.
And what I really want to know
Yeah.
is, I want to know first time up. I want to know confidence level and confidence level now.
Okay, great. That's a good question, actually, because when you said first time up, I remember exactly what it was, and people don't know this, okay? So, but first time of I knew of like where I started to perform was when I was 6 or 7 or 8 watching Eddie Murphy, right?
Okay.
And so right then when I saw somebody doing that up on stage, I was fascinated by it. Now I didn't know, maybe I didn't want to admit to myself that would be my career, but I was so enthralled, like, man, how can this guy go in and out of these different beingnesses and just be hysterical, right? So I would practice. I would literally practice as a kid. I watch his tapes and I do these different impersonations, and it was just something that I did, right? And I just gave it up, like, I don't know, well, I know a few reasons why, but we don't need to get into that. So when I was a kid, I stopped doing that, and then about 7 years ago, I saw somebody do a play. It was a former NFL football player, and by the name of Bo Eason. Tony Eason was his brother who played for the Patriots in 1984 against the Bears, right? Or 85. So I saw him doing a play called Runt of the Litter. And he was talking about how he grew up as the youngest, and his brother was a star, and he had this dream at a young age to be in the NFL. And I was at a business conference, so I didn't know this was going to happen. I was at a business conference learning about marketing and messaging. So this guy comes on stage, man, in his football uniform. And I'm watching, and I've seen Broadway, my director's a Broadway guy, and I watched these performances, and I was never so moved by what I saw on stage. So I was like pulled in, like my purpose was being sucked out of me, right? And I remember standing up at the end, we'll talk about knowing why, and just going, I looked at my friend, like the whole place was a standing ovation. I'm like, that's what I'm gonna do. And I knew right then. And so I took a course with him, And then, but I'm one of these people who was like, I'm just gonna try it. So without getting like my play down or anything, I was telling my story on stages as a speaker because I had been speaking for several years, and I was like, I'm just gonna try it at my next seminar. So first time, right, I get up on stage, man, and I'm like acting out one of my tennis experiences, and I'm like on stage, like flopping around like a dead fish. It was so bad. And I can't confront the audience because I don't have the chops or the confidence yet, right? So I'm just like, okay, well, maybe if I tell this story and then I kind of like do some performance, it was like an exorcism, man. It was that bad, right? And so, but I got done with it and I thought, wow, man, at least I tried it, And I wasn't like, I knew it was bad, right? But I wasn't like, I wasn't taken back from the standpoint of like, oh, I'm never going to do that again. I was like, okay, on to the next thing. So after that, I called this dude, right? Who, I know after that, so we talk about putting out a vision that you have in life. I was speaking at a conference for like 500 people, and everybody else was teaching, and I'm like, I'm just going to tell my story, but not do the whole like exorcism thing, right? Not do the acting. So I just told my story, and a woman came up to me, and she goes, wow, that story was awesome. She was the woman running the conference. And I go, yeah, I'm turning it into a one-man play. Just with like the resolve of like, this is what I'm meant to do. So she goes, I have just the person for you. This guy, Patrick Combs. So she introduced me to Patrick, and I track him down for like, he doesn't return my calls. And finally, months later, I track him down. And I meet up with him at Chipotle, right? We're sitting across the table, and he's like, so Ted, why do you want to do a one-man show? And I go, do you ever just have that feeling that you're just called? Like you're called to do something? Mm-hmm. And he just rolls up his sleeves and he starts dumping amazing information on me, right? And then at the end, he does the little napkin deal. He writes on a napkin, he slides it across the table, and he goes, so if you want to do this, and it's a pretty big number, he's like, if you want to do this, we start in 2 weeks in London. Like, London? Like, we're in San Diego right now. He's like, yeah, I'm touring in London, and he said, give me an opportunity to come write the play with me during the day. Now, at this point, I have a business to run. I have a seminar coming up in 6 weeks. I got to market it. I don't have my online marketing machine at this point. So at this point, now I know, like, I got to make a decision between my business or my acting. But I'm like, to me, there's no decision. I'm just going to do both, right? So I leave my business where I'm supposed to be marketing, filling the seminar, and I launch this online system that I'm praying is going to fucking work while I'm over in London, right? And I'm over there, and I take the trip, and I'm over there, and I'm watching the show with him. He starts the show at 6 o'clock, right, in the evening, and now it's 10 o'clock San Diego time. So my online system that I launched has a recording that's going off the precise time that the show is going on, that I'm watching. And I'm like, okay, he's going to come to the precipice of his show. My online presentation is going to come to the precipice at like the exact same moment, and I'm going to see if this thing really works. So I'm watching it, and I'm so engaged in his freaking story, and then I'm like, shit, I got to see if my business is still going to run, man. So I look to my phone, and I open up the email, and I see cha-ching, 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 and I'm making sales with my automated system while I'm doing the play. And so at the end of the trip, he looks at me, and he goes, okay, we've written the play. He goes, perform it. Like, what do you mean, perform it? He goes, we're in the hotel room now, you're going to perform for me. He's sitting on the bed, and I'm sitting in the chair, and I haven't, like, rehearsed this thing or gone through stuff with him. And he just tells me to grab the script, and it was the most embarrassing moment of my life. It was worse than flopping around on stage. Because here you are sitting in front of a mentor.
Like one person.
Yes, right? One person.
Audience of one.
Horrible, right? And I'm gagging of like embarrassment, and he's just like, keep going, keep going, keep going. And then at the end of like the most awful experience, I'm like, all right, let's set the date. And then I set the date for 4 months later of my first real play, right? Aside from the exorcism, right? And I do my first real play, and I invite hundreds of people, right? So I have 200 people show up, all my peers from my industry. Like, I'm just like, fuck it, man. This is just who I am. This is what I'm going to do. And I did it, and I did really well, man. And here's the thing. 3 days before the show, I hadn't found a character yet. So it was going to be a story with, like, we have characters. How am I going to play the characters? And my coach, it takes an emergency call by his pool for his son. And as he's on the phone, I'm like, okay, I can't bear to do the character in front of him, right? So I walk behind the shed, and I just go to do this voice. And I found the first voice. And I'm like, fuck, I can do this. And I got flooded with like memories from my childhood of like doing Eddie Murphy and do these impersonations. I can do this. And 3 days later, I went and did the play. And funny enough, my fiance now, who you met, she came to the first play ever, and she saw it. And then over time, I did it intermittently. You know, I just made sure I stayed consistent. So if I had a chance to go on somebody's stage and do it, like 2 months later, I do one, and then I do another one at my seminars. And then I stayed at it, and then about a year and a half ago, I hired James Barber. James is a Broadway star. You didn't meet him; he wasn't at the event. But James is, the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway.
Okay.
So I met him years ago because he saw what I was doing, and he wanted to learn from me, and I wanted to learn from him. So we created this relationship. So long story short, I started to get really serious with it, and how far I've come to answer your question is like night and freaking day, like exorcism. To now I can get up there and I'm like, this is me. This is like my truth of who I am at the core is this expression. That's been the road, man.
That's awesome, man.
Wild, right?
No, that's what it's about, though.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. People often think you learn more from success. You actually learn more when you fail.
Yeah, because it brings it all up, man.
That success is success. It's like, oh, it's good, you good. It's actually harder to grow from success.
Yeah, you learn what you're made of. That's what I've learned. I've learned what I was made of in all those embarrassing moments.
Yeah.
And as an actor, you're being judged, in front of audiences live. It's not like so I've been working with a film coach too, for getting ready for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole journey's been amazing because I've learned with one person just to get really still, and that's informed my stage play that helps me now in front of hundreds of people, no matter what's going on, be able to get really still and then access the emotion that I want to access.
Mm-hmm.
Versus the whole exorcism experience there was no moments for stillness, it was just terror. So there's no thinking, there's no presence, there's nothing, there's just frightening,
That's awesome. That's really tapping in right there.
Yeah. So this has been the journey of, I think, for me, finding my purpose. Which in doing that, I knew I knew from day one when I went into the tank to get this stuff out of my system with the drugs. I knew I'd never go back. That's the first thing. But the second thing is, I think when you get a little bit clearer and your head. We were talking earlier about marijuana, how people who do marijuana, they just get slower, right?
It's just no sense.
Yeah.
Makes no sense to me.
So if you have your me neither. So if you have your senses with you, I think people can get clear on their purpose. So any final words to the audience about drug-free world, about either finding their purpose in life, or anything you want to say to people? So.
Yeah, I just if you're out there and you're struggling with anything, you have any issues in the world, find a person and turn to them. Don't turn to drugs. Just this quote. This quote stuck with me, and at the time when it was told to me, I didn't understand it. But when the time came, it really made sense. So hopefully, you reach out to me on any social media platform. I'm at Marshall Faulk. And ask me what it means, and I'll explain to you. But if you travel down the road with no speed bumps, you're headed for a dead end.
Ah, interesting.
Keep that in mind.
I like that one, man. I like that. That's good. Well, this has been awesome. Hey, guys, so obviously we're very passionate about drug-free world. We're going to have some information below this. If you want to get involved in any way to contribute, if you know somebody who's, obviously impacted by drugs right now, if you're not impacted yourself, but you know somebody, you're still impacted. So help them out, make a difference. I love the main thing that came out of this is let's get people clear on their why they're here. If we do that, I think we're gonna have way less people on drugs, and we're gonna have more people contributing to the world, being authentic, and making a difference. So it's been great hanging with you, man.
Pleasure, man.
Yeah.